Muhammad Hamid, a dedicated analyst balancing faith and career in a fast-paced corporate world, finds himself caught between religious obligation and workplace expectations. At Pinnacle Solutions, where deadlines reign supreme, his modest request for 30 minutes of prayer time ignites an unexpected showdown that will challenge the very foundation of the company's culture. When an atheist colleague becomes his strongest ally, Muhammad discovers that the fight for religious freedom might just lead to a revolution of empathy and understanding that no one, not even the resistant director Parker, could have anticipated. Before we begin, write in the comments where you're listening to our stories from. Subscribe to our channel, it's free and you can always change your mind. Enjoy the story. Chapter 1. Muhammad's finger hovered over the send button, his heartbeat quickening as he read through the email one last time. Outside his cubicle, the open office hummed with the usual Friday morning energy, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, the occasional burst of laughter. But inside he felt isolated, trapped between two worlds that seemed increasingly difficult to reconcile. Just press send, he told himself. The worst he can say is no. But that was precisely what Muhammad feared. After 6 months at Pinnacle Solutions, he'd carefully built his reputation as a dedicated analyst who never complained, even when projects demanded late nights or weekend work. Now he was about to risk it all with a simple request. He clicked send. The response came faster than expected. Director Parker wanted to see him now. Muhammad's stomach knotted as he walked the 30 steps to the corner office, feeling curious gazes following him. Through the glass walls, he could see Parker frowning at his monitor, silver-streaked hair catching the morning light. "Come in, Muhammad," Parker said without looking up. "Close the door." Muhammad sat, hands folded tightly in his lap. "So," Parker finally looked at him, blue eyes sharp. "You want to leave early every Friday?" "Just 30 minutes, sir, for Jumu'ah, Friday prayer. It's particularly important in Islam." Parker leaned back. "We're in a deadline crunch for the next 2 quarters. Everyone needs to pull their weight." "I'll come in early to compensate, sir, or stay late other days." "Muhammad," Parker's voice softened slightly, though his expression remained unyielding. "Religion is a personal matter. We can't make exceptions based on personal beliefs. It creates complications." The unspoken message hung between them. Don't make this an issue. What would he tell his father, his imam, himself when he prayed alone in his apartment tonight, knowing he hadn't even tried to stand up for his faith? "Is there anything else?" Parker asked, already turning back to his computer. Muhammad opened his mouth to respond, unaware that across the office, someone was watching this exchange with growing concern, someone who would change everything. Chapter 2. Alex Chen hadn't meant to eavesdrop. From his desk diagonal to Parker's office, the sound-dampening panels did little to muffle the director's rising voice. As Muhammad walked back to his desk, shoulders slumped, expression carefully blank, Alex felt something twist inside him. He'd never spoken much with Muhammad beyond project discussions. They inhabited different worlds, Alex with his science podcasts and weekend hikes, Muhammad with his quiet dignity and occasional absences from team happy hours. But there was something about the defeat in Muhammad's eyes that stirred an unexpected anger in Alex. "Rough meeting?" Alex asked, rolling his chair closer as Muhammad sat down. Muhammad gave a tight smile. "Nothing serious." "The prayer thing?" When Muhammad's eyes widened, Alex shrugged. "Glass walls, sound travels?" "It's fine," Muhammad said automatically. "I understand the company position." "Do you?" Alex challenged. "Because I don't." Muhammad stared at his computer screen. "Parker says exceptions create complications." "That's corporate speak for I don't want to bother." Alex leaned closer. "My sister used to work at Grayson Tech. They have prayer rooms and flexible schedules for religious observances." "This isn't Grayson Tech." "No," Alex agreed, "but it should still respect basic rights." Muhammad finally met his gaze. "Why do you care? You're not even religious. I've heard you joke about being an atheist." The question caught Alex off guard. Why did he care? He pictured his grandparents who had faced discrimination when they immigrated from Taiwan, how his father still tensed whenever certain jokes were made. Because today it's your prayer time. Tomorrow it's someone else's identity being called complicated. Alex rolled back to his desk. Just think about it. As Muhammad watched Alex return to work, something shifted in his perspective. This unexpected ally had given him more than support. He'd given him a choice: accept the rejection or fight for something more important than just 30 minutes of freedom on Fridays. His phone buzzed with a calendar reminder: Jumu'ah in 2 hours, a prayer he would miss again. Muhammad made his decision. Chapter 3. Muhammad spent the weekend in turmoil. Friday evening at the mosque had brought him little peace, his thoughts continuously drifting to Parker's dismissive tone. The casual way his religious obligations had been brushed aside like an inconvenient scheduling conflict. During communal prayers, he stood shoulder to shoulder with men from all walks of life. Doctors who arranged hospital shifts around Jumu'ah, business owners who closed their shops for the sacred hour, even other corporate employees whose companies had found ways to accommodate their faith. Why was Pinnacle different? At his parents' home for Saturday dinner, his father had asked innocently about work. Muhammad had dodged the question, unwilling to admit he'd failed to stand up for the principles his father had instilled in him since childhood. His mother, with her uncanny intuition, had watched him pick at his biryani with knowing eyes but mercifully asked nothing. Sunday brought no relief. Muhammad paced his modest apartment, alternating between drafting impassioned emails he never sent and researching labor laws on religious accommodation until his eyes burned from screen glare. By midnight, as he knelt for his final prayers, a strange calm descended upon him. Not resignation, but resolution. Monday morning arrived with a pale, watery sunrise that nonetheless felt significant. Muhammad arrived at the Pinnacle Solutions building an hour earlier than usual, the security guard raising his eyebrows in surprise as he badged him through the near-empty lobby. "Early meeting?" the guard asked. "Something like that," Muhammad replied, his voice steadier than it had been all weekend. The elevator ascended in blessed silence, allowing Muhammad one final moment to gather his thoughts, to inhale deeply and straighten his shoulders. When the doors opened to the 12th floor, the office space was still mostly dark, motion sensors triggering lights as he walked the path to his desk. Only one office already blazed with full illumination, Parker's corner domain, where the director's silhouette was visible against the backdrop of downtown skyscrapers. Of course, Parker would be here already. The man practically lived at Pinnacle, his dedication to the company bordering on religious fervor of its own. The irony wasn't lost on Muhammad. He deposited his messenger bag at his cubicle but didn't sit down. Instead, he walked directly to Parker's office, heart pounding but steps unwavering. Through the glass walls, he could see his director hunched over financial projections, silver-streaked hair slightly disheveled, coffee mug already half empty despite the early hour. Muhammad knocked softly on the doorframe. "Sir, do you have a moment?" Parker looked up, surprise crossing his features before his professional mask slid back into place. "Muhammad, early bird today, I see. I wanted to discuss my request again." Muhammad stepped inside without waiting for an invitation, closing the door behind him with quiet deliberation. "About Friday prayers." Parker's expression hardened, the lines around his mouth deepening. "I believe we covered this topic thoroughly on Friday." "No, sir, we didn't." Muhammad remained standing, noticing for the first time how Parker seemed smaller behind his imposing desk. Just a man, not the intimidating figure Muhammad had built up in his mind. "You dismissed my request without proper consideration. I explained our position. With respect, sir, your position may violate labor regulations regarding religious accommodations." The change in Parker's demeanor was immediate and striking. His back stiffened, eyes narrowed, fingers flexing slightly around his pen. "Is that a threat?" "It's information," Muhammad replied calmly, drawing strength from somewhere deep within himself, the same place that sustained him during Ramadan fasts and pre-dawn prayers. "I've researched company policies and legal requirements over the weekend. There's nothing in either that prevents a reasonable accommodation for religious practices." Parker leaned back in his chair, studying Muhammad with new intensity. "And who exactly helped you arrive at this conclusion?" His gaze flicked meaningfully toward Alex's empty desk in the open office area. "Does it matter?" Muhammad countered, refusing to be diverted. "What matters is that I'm requesting 30 minutes, time I'll compensate for, to practice an essential element of my faith." "Muhammad." Parker stood abruptly, towering over his desk in what Muhammad recognized as a deliberate power move. "I appreciate your enthusiasm, but this sets a precedent. Next, someone wants time off for this holiday or that ritual, and suddenly project deadlines are secondary to personal observances." The dismissive phrasing ignited something in Muhammad's chest, a slow-burning flame of indignation that had been building since Friday. "Is that how you see it, as a personal indulgence? Like I'm asking for extra coffee breaks?" "That's not what I—" "It's exactly what you meant," a voice interrupted from the doorway. They both turned to find Alex standing there, messenger bag still slung across his chest, coffee cup in hand, looking as if he'd been there all along. Mohammed felt a confusing mixture of relief and concern. He hadn't asked for backup, hadn't even told Alex about this confrontation. "Mr. Chen," Parker's voice dropped dangerously low, "this conversation doesn't concern you." "Actually, it does." Alex stepped inside, placing his coffee on Parker's desk with deliberate care, the ceramic making a soft but definitive click against the polished wood. "Because Mohammed isn't the only one who's noticed the lack of cultural awareness in this company." Parker's face flushed a dangerous shade of red. "I don't appreciate being ambushed in my own office at 7 in the morning. And Mohammed doesn't appreciate having his religious rights dismissed," Alex countered, his tone mild but his words razor-sharp. "But here we are." "You're an atheist," Parker said, as if this invalidated Alex's presence entirely. "What's your stake in this?" Mohammed looked at Alex with surprise. He hadn't known that about his colleague, though they'd never discussed religion directly. "I believe in fairness," Alex replied simply, "and I believe Pinnacle can do better." Mohammed watched this exchange with a mixture of gratitude and anxiety. He hadn't asked for Alex's intervention, hadn't even told him about this meeting. Yet somehow, this man he barely knew outside of project discussions had shown up at precisely the right moment, with precisely the right words. "Sir," Mohammed redirected Parker's attention, "I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm asking for equal respect." Parker's jaw worked as he looked between them, clearly calculating the politics of the situation. 2 employees against 1 director could still be managed, but if this spread... His eyes darted toward the still empty office beyond the glass walls. "And if I say no, what then?" Parker's voice was deceptively soft. "HR complaints? Legal action? Media coverage about how Pinnacle discriminates against religious employees?" "If necessary," Mohammed answered, surprised by his own resolve. "But I'd rather it didn't come to that." The tension in the room was palpable, the early morning quiet making their conversation seem louder than it was. Through the glass walls, Mohammed noticed the elevators delivering the first wave of early arrivals, curious gazes, already turning toward the unusual gathering in Parker's office. Parker noticed too. His expression shifted from anger to calculation with alarming speed. "Let me look into it," he finally said, his tone making it clear the conversation was over. "I'll have an answer for you by the end of the week." As Mohammed and Alex left Parker's office, the weight of what had just transpired settled between them. They'd challenged authority. Parker wasn't just any manager, but a founding director with the CEO's ear. There would be consequences, though what form they might take remained to be seen. "Thank you," Mohammed said quietly as they reached their respective desks. "But you didn't have to get involved." Alex smiled, a genuine warmth reaching his eyes. "Sometimes standing on the sidelines is just another form of compliance." Mohammed nodded, the wisdom of those words resonating deeply. As they turned to their computers, Mohammed noticed a notification already blinking on his screen. A meeting request from Human Resources for later that day. Subject line, "Urgent, workplace accommodations discussion." Parker had wasted no time escalating the situation. But rather than fear, Mohammed felt something else stirring within him. A determination he hadn't known he possessed, hardening like steel forged in fire. "Alex," Mohammed said softly, turning his monitor so his unexpected ally could see the meeting request, "I think we've stirred the hornet's nest." Alex's expression hardened as he read the terse message. "Good," he replied, with such conviction that Mohammed couldn't help but believe him. It's about time someone did. The hours until the HR meeting crawled by with excruciating slowness. Mohammed tried to focus on his current project, a risk assessment for a potential client in Dubai, but his concentration kept slipping. Emails went unanswered. Design specifications remained half-reviewed. Even his usual meticulous notes became scattered and disjointed. By contrast, Alex seemed preternaturally calm, methodically working through his tasks with the same efficiency as any other day. Only the occasional reassuring glance in Mohammed's direction betrayed his awareness of the looming confrontation. At precisely 2:30 p.m., Mohammed's phone buzzed with a reminder. He looked up to find Alex already standing, laptop tucked under his arm. "Ready?" Alex asked simply. Mohammed nodded, though in truth he felt anything but ready. As they walked toward the HR suite, colleagues watched their progress with undisguised curiosity. Word had spread, office gossip traveling at its usual lightning speed. "Mohammed! Alex!" They turned to find Zainab from marketing hurrying toward them, her hijab a bright splash of teal against the corporate grays and blues of the office. "I heard about the meeting," she said, slightly breathless. "Is it true about the prayer accommodation?" Mohammed hesitated, uncertain how much to share. "It's being discussed," Alex answered diplomatically. Zainab looked between them, then lowered her voice. "I've been using my lunch break for prayer. Having to rush through something so important." She shook her head. "What you're doing matters, not just for Muslims." With a quick squeeze of Mohammed's arm, she was gone, disappearing back into the marketing department. But her words lingered, adding new weight to their mission. The HR conference room felt deliberately intimidating, all polished mahogany and leather chairs that creaked accusingly with every movement. Mohammed sat rigid, Alex beside him, as Clara Jenkins, the head of HR, reviewed her notes with methodical precision, her silver-rimmed glasses catching the fluorescent light. Across the table, Parker maintained his professional demeanor, but the tight set of his jaw betrayed his irritation. Beside him sat Terry Williams, Pinnacle's legal counsel, a late addition that made Mohammed's stomach clench with apprehension. "Let me ensure I understand correctly," Clara said, her voice neutral as Switzerland. "Mr. Hamid requested time accommodation for religious observance. This request was denied without consultation with human resources. And now, Mr. Chen, you're involving yourself because it's the right thing to do," Alex replied simply. Clara's perfectly composed expression revealed nothing of her thoughts. "I see. Director Parker, what was your reasoning for denying the request?" Parker leaned forward, elbows on the table, fingers steepled. "Precedent, Miss Jenkins. We're in the middle of our busiest quarter. The Anderson project alone requires all hands on deck. If we start making exceptions—" "Religious accommodation isn't an exception," Mohammed interrupted, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "It's a protected right." Terry Williams cleared his throat meaningfully. "Perhaps we should discuss the legal framework before making broad statements." "By all means," Alex said, opening his laptop. "I've compiled relevant case law on religious accommodation in corporate settings. Would you like me to share my screen, or shall I email it to everyone present?" The lawyer's eyebrows shot up in surprise. Mohammed felt equally shocked. Alex had clearly been preparing for this moment far more thoroughly than he'd let on. Parker's nostrils flared. Pinnacle has never had a formal religious accommodation policy. In 15 years, this has never been an issue. "It's been an issue," Mohammed countered, finding courage in Alex's preparedness. "It just hasn't been addressed." "How many Muslims do we even employ?" Parker asked, frustration bleeding through his professional veneer. "1, 2, 17 across all departments," Clara answered promptly, "plus 23 practicing Jews, 39 observant Christians of various denominations, 12 Hindus, 7 Buddhists, and 5 Sikhs, according to our diversity tracking." Parker blinked, clearly not expecting such precise figures. "And those are just the employees who felt comfortable disclosing their religious affiliations," Clara added. "The actual numbers are likely higher." Terry shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "The issue isn't the number of religious employees, but the practicality of accommodating various observances without disrupting business operations." "Exactly," Parker seized on this. "Where do we draw the line? Daily prayers, weekly services, monthly rituals, religious holidays from dozens of different faiths." "That's precisely why we need a formal policy," Clara said, surprising them all with her directness. She closed her folder with a decisive snap. "And an oversight we need to correct immediately." Parker stared at her. "I'm sorry?" "Director Parker, our company handbook may not explicitly outline religious accommodation procedures, but federal law certainly does." Clara turned to Mohammed, her expression softening slightly. "Mr. Hamid, I apologize for this situation. Your request for 30 minutes to attend Friday prayers is reasonable and will be granted, effective immediately." Mohammed felt a rush of emotion so powerful, he could only nod in response, not trusting himself to speak. "Furthermore," Clara continued, turning back to address the entire room, "I'll be drafting a comprehensive religious inclusivity policy for company-wide implementation within 30 days. She turned to Parker. "With input from all department heads, of course." Parker's face had gone from red to an alarming shade of white. "Clara, this seems rather rushed." "What seems rushed, Richard, is how quickly you dismissed a valid request without consulting HR." Her smile was professionally pleasant but left no room for argument. "This meeting is adjourned. Mr. Hamid, please see me afterward to formalize your accommodation schedule." Terry was already gathering his papers, shooting Parker a look that clearly said, "Don't make this worse." As they filtered out of the conference room, Mohammed found himself walking beside Alex in stunned silence, the outcome so different from what he had feared that he could barely process it. "That was unexpected," Mohammed finally managed as they reached the elevator bank. Alex grinned, relief evident in the loosening of his shoulders. Clara's always been a stickler for rules. Parker just forgot that some rules are bigger than his project deadlines. In the atrium, sunlight streamed through the skylights, casting everything in a golden glow that felt oddly appropriate, almost divine in its timing. "Why did you really help me?" Muhammad asked, the question that had been nagging him since Alex first intervened. "You barely know me." Alex was quiet for a moment, watching the play of light through the geometric patterns of the skylight. "When I was a kid, my dad worked at a place where his accent was mocked, his traditions dismissed. He never complained, never fought back. He told me it was just how things were." Alex's expression clouded with an old anger. "It shouldn't have been." Muhammad nodded, understanding flowing between them. The universal language of otherness, of fighting to belong while staying true to oneself. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what, standing up for basic decency?" "For not accepting just how things are," Muhammad replied. The elevator arrived with a soft chime, but neither of them moved to enter it. Something significant had shifted between them, colleagues becoming allies, perhaps even friends. "I should go see Clara," Muhammad said finally. "Formalize the arrangement." Alex nodded. "And I should finish that code review before the end of day. But..." He hesitated. "Coffee tomorrow? I'd like to hear more about your faith if you're willing to share." "I'd like that," Muhammad replied, surprised by how much he meant it. As Alex stepped into the elevator, Muhammad called after him, "How did you know to be in Parker's office this morning?" Alex held the door with one hand, a mischievous smile playing at his lips. "I didn't. I came in early to catch up on work and saw you heading in there looking like a man on a mission. The rest was improvisation." The doors closed on his grin, leaving Muhammad shaking his head in disbelief and profound gratitude for the unexpected ways the universe answered prayers. The walk back to HR felt lighter somehow, as if the weight Muhammad had been carrying had been redistributed, made bearable by sharing. Through department windows, he caught glimpses of colleagues watching him, some with curiosity, others with something that looked remarkably like respect. Clara was waiting in her office, a stack of forms already prepared. "I meant what I said in there, Muhammad. This should have been handled better from the start." "Thank you," he said, taking the seat she offered. "I was prepared for a much different outcome." "Parker's not a bad person," Clara said, removing her glasses to clean them methodically. "Just old school. Thinks accommodation is the same as special treatment." She replaced her glasses, fixing Muhammad with a direct gaze. "But he'll adapt, or he'll answer to me." Something in her tone made Muhammad suspect there was history there. Battles fought long before he joined Pinnacle. "Now," Clara said briskly, "let's make this official. 30 minutes early departure on Fridays for Jumu'ah prayer. You mentioned compensating the time. Yes, I can come in earlier or stay later other days." Clara waved this away. "Unnecessary. You're salaried and your performance metrics are exemplary. We trust you to manage your workload." As he signed the forms, simple paperwork that nonetheless represented a profound victory, Muhammad felt a strange mixture of triumph and humility. What had begun as a personal quest for 30 minutes of freedom had somehow expanded into something much larger than himself. "One more thing," Clara said as he stood to leave. "I'd like your input on the new inclusivity policy. Your perspective would be valuable, if you're willing." Muhammad nodded, understanding the opportunity being offered. "I'd be honored." "Excellent. I'll schedule a working session next week." "And Muhammad?" Clara's professional demeanor softened slightly. "Thank you for having the courage to speak up. Change only happens when someone is brave enough to demand it." As he left the HR suite, Muhammad's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Victory Coffee, lobby in 5, Alex?" Muhammad smiled, typing a quick reply. "On my way." The seeds of something important had been planted today. A policy change, yes, but also a friendship. And perhaps most significantly, a new understanding of his own capacity to affect change. His father had always taught him that faith wasn't just practiced in mosques, but in how one moved through the world, with integrity, courage, and compassion. Today, he felt he had honored those teachings in a way that transcended the simple act of prayer. As he stepped into the elevator to meet Alex, Muhammad whispered a quiet, "Alhamdulillah, praise be to God," for the unexpected allies and unforeseen blessings that had emerged from what had begun as a simple request for 30 minutes of sacred time. Chapter 4. The HR conference room felt deliberately intimidating, all polished mahogany and leather chairs that creaked accusingly with every movement. Muhammad sat rigid, Alex beside him, as Clara Jenkins, the head of HR, reviewed her notes with methodical precision. Across the table, Parker maintained his professional demeanor, but the tight set of his jaw betrayed his irritation. "Let me ensure I understand correctly. Clara said, her voice neutral. Mr. Hamid requested time accommodation for religious observance. This request was denied, and now, Mr. Chen, you're involving yourself because it's the right thing to do, Alex replied simply. Clara's expression revealed nothing. Director Parker, what was your reasoning for denying the request? Parker leaned forward. Precedent, Miss Jenkins. We're in the middle of our busiest season. If we start making exceptions, religious accommodation isn't an exception, Muhammad interrupted, his voice steady despite his racing heart. It's a protected right. Parker's nostrils flared. Pinnacle has never had a formal religious accommodation policy, which is precisely the problem, Clara said, surprising them all. She closed her folder with a decisive snap, and an oversight we need to correct immediately. Parker blinked. I'm sorry? Director Parker, our company handbook may not explicitly outline religious accommodation procedures, but federal law certainly does. Clara turned to Muhammad. Mr. Hamid, I apologize for this situation. Your request for 30 minutes to attend Friday prayers is reasonable and will be granted effective immediately. Muhammad felt a rush of emotion so powerful he could only nod in response. Furthermore, Clara continued, I'll be drafting a comprehensive religious inclusivity policy for company-wide implementation within 30 days. She turned to Parker. With input from all department heads, of course. Parker's face had gone from red to white. Clara, this seems rather rushed. What seems rushed, Richard, is how quickly you dismissed a valid request without consulting HR. Her smile was professionally pleasant but left no room for argument. This meeting is adjourned. Mr. Hamid, please see me afterward to formalize your accommodation schedule. As they filtered out of the conference room, Muhammad found himself walking beside Alex in stunned silence. That was unexpected, Muhammad finally managed. Alex grinned. Clara's always been a stickler for rules. Parker just forgot that some rules are bigger than his project deadlines. In the atrium, sunlight streamed through the skylights, casting everything in a golden glow that felt oddly appropriate. Why did you really help me? Muhammad asked, the question that had been nagging him since Alex first intervened. Alex was quiet for a moment. When I was a kid, my dad worked at a place where his accent was mocked, his traditions dismissed. He never complained, never fought back. He told me it was just how things were. Alex's expression clouded with an old anger. It shouldn't have been. Muhammad nodded, understanding flowing between them. Thank you. For what? Standing up for basic decency? For not accepting just how things are, Muhammad replied. 2 months later, Muhammad stood in Pinnacle's newly designated meditation room, a small space that had once been storage, now transformed with simple, calming decor and symbols from various faiths displayed with equal prominence. The company's religious inclusivity policy had expanded far beyond his initial request. Cultural awareness training was now mandatory. Flexible scheduling for religious observances had been formalized. Even Parker had grudgingly admitted the changes had been minimally disruptive to workflows. As Muhammad prepared for his Friday prayer, the door opened and Alex appeared. Just wanted to see how it's working out, Alex said, looking around the room with approval. Better than I ever imagined, Muhammad admitted. Yesterday, Priya from accounting asked about using the space for her daily meditation. Progress, Alex nodded. Muhammad hesitated, then asked, would you like to stay? You don't have to participate, but I'd like you to see what you helped make possible. Alex seemed surprised by the invitation, but nodded. I'd be honored. As Muhammad began his prayers, he was acutely aware of Alex's respectful presence nearby. Their unlikely alliance had created ripples throughout Pinnacle, small changes that together were shifting the company's culture. Not everyone had embraced the new policies. There were still murmurs of discontent, sidelong glances, occasional jokes. But something fundamental had changed, not just in company policy, but in the atmosphere itself. In fighting for his 30 minutes of prayer time, Muhammad had discovered something profound about himself and about the power of unexpected allies. Some battles shouldn't be fought alone. And sometimes, the most powerful support came from those who had nothing personal to gain. Later, as they walked back to their desks together, Muhammad noticed a small group of their colleagues waiting by the elevators, a mix of faiths and backgrounds, some he knew well, others he'd barely spoken to. What's this? He asked. Zainab from marketing stepped forward. We're heading out for lunch. Thought you both might like to join us. Muhammad looked at Alex, who shrugged with a smile. I could eat. As they rode the elevator down, surrounded by conversation and laughter, Muhammad felt a sense of belonging he hadn't experienced since joining Pinnacle. He caught Alex's eye, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. Some victories were measured not in grand gestures or policy documents, but in elevator rides and lunch invitations, in the small, human connections that made a workplace more than just somewhere to earn a paycheck. And in those 30 minutes he'd fought so hard to secure, Muhammad had found something beyond the time for prayer. He'd found his voice, an unexpected ally, and a community that was learning, however imperfectly, to make space for all its members. When the next Friday came, Muhammad wasn't alone as he walked to the meditation room. Others followed, some to pray in their own traditions, others simply to respect the moment of peace in their hectic day. And if Parker noticed this new ritual developing in his meticulously structured workplace, he said nothing. Perhaps he too was learning that some changes, once set in motion, created not the chaos he had feared, but something altogether more valuable. A workplace where people brought not just their skills, but their whole selves. Muhammad smiled as he prepared for prayer, remembering his father's words from long ago. Faith isn't just what you believe, it's how you live those beliefs when it isn't easy. Today, at least, living his faith had become a little easier. And tomorrow, that would be another day's prayer. Wow, what a story! And there is more coming. Don't forget to subscribe to not miss a new stories.